The skyrocketing cost of living in Australia isn't just bad luck or economic mismanagement. It's a deliberate strategy by corporations and the government to keep families financially trapped. Thoughts?
Yeah, mate.
John?
Well, look, I've obviously made it very clear that I think the government needs to do more to alleviate the cost of living burden. One thing I wanted to talk about that has a link to cost of living is inflation. So I've gone on a deep dive recently.
Talk to me about printing or not printing, or
not
what are we
printing
doing?
or printing. So every time I jump on the internet, I see people going, "Bro, there's so much inflation." Or they say, "Bro," I say, "Bro." I see people on the internet saying, "There's so much inflation, and it's all because the government is printing so much money. They're printing money out of thin air. They're printing money out of thin air. It's money printing, money printing." Now, that made me think, how does the financial system even work? And in Australia, we've got the Reserve Bank in Australia. Do they print money out of thin air? Technically, that's what the internet, conspiracists would want you to think. It's not necessarily, there's nuance to it in that they're not printing money out of thin air. What they're doing is they're bringing liquidity into the financial markets. So what does the RBA do? They do not just go generate $1 billion, okay, and put it into the economy that didn't exist. They take something first. So what happens is they go to banks and other financial institutions. They have to give something in exchange for that money, which is a hard asset. Think about it the way you think about water. Water has three forms, okay? Water can be ice, solid. Water can be liquid. And water can be gas, okay? H2O. Vapor. So imagine the RBA's job is to decide how much of the H2O is vapor, water, and solid ice, okay? In this analogy, all tangible assets like gold and commodities and property, that's solid, that's ice, okay? All intangible assets, okay? Goodwill, bonds, things like that, they're like vapor, okay? And the cash in the economy is the water. It lubricates the economy. All the RBA does is they come and they meet and they say, all right, for monetary policy, how much of the vapor and how much of the ice should we turn into water? Okay? And they have a mechanism where they can turn bonds or gold or other things which they collect into promissory notes, which is the cash they issue into the economy. Have they created anything? No. They have reconstituted the asset makeup between bonds, stocks, gold, whatever assets they do. They take in and then they issue out promissory notes. If you return those notes, if we take all the cash in the economy, all the water, and return it to the RBA tomorrow, they will reissue gas or ice. We'd still end up with the net same amount of things in the economy, okay? But what happens is they're trying to lubricate the economy by putting cash in and taking out assets just to the point to keep inflation between 2 and 3%. The real issue is how the government, and this is fiscal policy, how the government spends their money. What the government can do, aside from the RBA, is run a budget deficit. And this is something they did a lot during COVID, where the government actually issued bonds, sold bonds to banks, okay, took money and spent more money than what the government has to stimulate the economy, okay? And that sometimes if you do that too much, or you do the monetization, loan monetization thing the RBA does too much, you can end up with too much inflation. But that's why Sandra Bullock and the RBA have the job every 6 weeks of going in and saying, have we done this too much? Okay, now we'll ease off or we'll bring the rates down. Or do we need to push more? So I don't like the scaremongering about the role of Federal Reserve or RBA and that, and I say it's all fake. It's just all money printing. Bro, if you understood what money printing was and what the intention of these institutions were, you wouldn't call it money printing. Now, you can come and argue with me about whether you call it money printing or not, whatever, but the real issue is how is the government spending their money? How are they taxing the economy? Okay, and this is what I have a problem with. They're taxing the wrong people and they're spending the money on the wrong things.
Agreed.
Okay? And that is what is causing this cost of living crisis. Okay? Cost of living crisis purely means you're hurting poor people more than rich people. In Australia, we have a cost of living crisis where policy is hurting poor people more than it's hurting rich people. And that's not fair.
Agreed.
We need to set up the society in a way where poor people are not hurt as much as rich people. And we need to do it with fiscal policy. The government needs to look at the tax system and overhaul it, because we're disadvantaging everyday people. And every single day that goes on, more and more people are falling out of the middle class and the blue collar class to the poverty line. And we're going to end up with a country with 25, 30 million Australians where like 500,000 people are doing well and own all the properties, and everyone else owns nothing.
Completely agreed. And that's a great take on it, and you've done a fantastic job of clarifying the way the monetary system works. But the other issue at play here is that I have a firm belief in that the financial advice sector has become so overwhelmed with red tape and policy that it is impossible for the average Australian who needs the financial education to get access to the financial education which would help them make decisions that benefit them financially. And you could speak to any financial advisor. There's a minimum entry fee that not everyone can afford. The conspiracy I have on that is that we're not teaching it in school. We're not encouraging people to go and get that financial education at a reasonable price. And part of the thing is, if you don't have consumers, who are the consumers? The lower and middle class, because they don't have the means of actually even putting money away. The consumers, you're going to lose them, because if you're teaching a consumer how to become more financially astute, how to do things differently to maybe get ahead, you've lost the person you're actually selling the goods and services to. And we're very much we are an export economy, but our small business is mainly a service economy where we service each other. So I think financial education has been left out of the system for way too long. And do I think that's by design? I think it could be. I can see the scenario where the middle class and lower middle class are just allowed to be on this rabbit hole of accessing more credit than is probably good, spending money, doing all these things. And then the cost of living crisis comes in and compounds on that and forces them into now debt and forces them into positions where you can't make good financial decisions if your only financial decision is, do I pay the rent or feed my kid?
It's not fair. It's not right. Yeah. And I'm done. I'm actually done with we need financial education. I'm done with it.
Right.
Why am I done with we need financial education? Because we've tried that line and it doesn't work. You know what we actually need the government to pay for? Financial services. We need the government to say, you know what? We pay for doctors. We pay for NDIS, okay? We pay for hospitals, or, if you don't have food, we buy you food. Guess what?
100%.
Who can't afford financial services? Poor Australians. It's about time the government starts paying for accountants and financial planners and finance professionals to provide these services to everyday Australians, because it's these lack of these services that are resulting in the lack of financial skills and the money to have a good cost of living.
Absolutely.
And to survive. Why shouldn't accounting and financial services be if you can't afford a lawyer, you'll get legal aid. Do you know what I mean? If you can't afford a doctor, you'll get Medicare. All right? If you can't afford food, Centrelink will give you money to go buy food. Bro, financial know-how, literacy, financial services are just as important as those other services. Yet we do not want to pay professionals like me and you to help the poor people who can't afford our services. Man, we try to make them as cheap as possible.
100%.
But bro, at the end of the day, our segment of the market, it's like what we do for people is not a necessity, but the top end of town, the rich, they're happy to pay their accountants and their financial professionals tens of millions of dollars because they know that's what really makes the difference. The government doesn't want you to have an accountant.
100%. And if we're going to say we care about health, let's take care of all kinds of health. There's physical health, but there's also financial health. And more often than not, how many times do you see this, John, where the financial health will be the cause of a lot of other issues and will be the cause of the mental health issues, will be the cause of the marital issues, will be the cause of the physical issues that someone will suffer simply because the financial health was not taken care of. And if we're going to take health in this country seriously, financial health has to be a part of that conversation.
I've said it before, I said it again. My dad was let down by the financial services system, financial knowledge, expertise in this country when he lost his business and he lost his home. That caused more pain and suffering than missing a few meals or not being able to go to the doctor to get some antibiotics every now and then. would have caused.
Mm.
The pain that caused me and my family was purely not being able to afford the right type of financial services.
Mm.
We collect all the money for the government to run this country. If that is not a service governments should start putting money into,
Absolutely.
then what should they put money into?
Yeah.
You make Australians go pay accountants top dollar to pay taxes. So we make Australians pay more taxes than what they should, and they have to pay an accountant for the privilege. How about the government starts chipping in some of that money and saying, you know what, accountants are an essential service. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I think we should start the accountants' rights party and actually start getting some government funding to do this job we do, because at the end of the day, I would do it for everyone for free.
Yeah, 100%.
And I love accounting so much, and I think it's so valuable. I want to do it for everyone for free, and it burns me that we can't do it for free, because there's no policy makers, there's no government, there's no one who looks at our industry and says this is a real good service that you actually need, everyone needs.
Absolutely. And instead, they crush the service provider and they crush the financial services
and they bring in
provider
more
into
rules for
oblivion.
us,
That's
and they make
exactly
it
right.
harder for us.
That's exactly right.
So we have to charge more.
Correct.
And it's not fair,
So
bro.
it's backwards.